When I started studying handwriting analysis, I've always been interested in why people write so much differently and how difficult it is to really sign somebody else's name the way they sign it because of what forms your handwriting. And of course, left or right-handed has something to do with it, but very, very little. You can't tell whether a person's right-handed or left-handed by looking at their handwriting. But anyway, about halfway through the basic course, part of the test papers that we sent in asked if we had learned something about ourselves from where we were in the course, which wasn't very deep yet. When I analyzed my own handwriting, and this was in the very elemental part of it, deceit, self-deceit and deceit of other people is quite obvious in one's handwriting. And almost everybody has a little bit of self-deceit, but I noticed that I had a little bit more than my share. Ever since I had worked so hard to get a college degree, because I felt like that kind of brought me up to the level that I envied so when I was a child of people that had more stuff than we did. I thought, I guess subconsciously at least, that getting a college degree would be my only way to show other people that I started trying to figure out where it was coming from, what was causing the self-deceit, and why I always felt when I was among people which I considered my superiors, intellectually and materially too, why I had that feeling. And then I could remember certain incidents that happened when I was young, and it was during the Depression, and we had a big family, and this was back in the late 1920s and early 30s. One of the things that it brought to my memory was when I was in about the second, possibly the third grade. We had the same teacher for the first 3 grades of school. So we had, three classes in the same room. And I wasn't particularly sharp until someplace in about the second grade, and I caught on reading really quickly and easily, and got to be one of the people who was asked to stand up at the front of the room. And if somebody had a question while they were studying something, if they had a word that they didn't know what it meant or how to spell it or anything, they would hold up their hand and I would go back and explain it to them. Our teacher was an unmarried lady of probably about 50 at that time. She liked me. I felt close to her, and I respected and liked her. Every Christmas, we would get a big box from California. One of my father's aunts, she was my great aunt, would send us a box of Christmas gifts. This big box would come, and it would have a gift for all 5 or yes, at that time there were 5 girls in the family. She had sent me a pen and pencil set, but I knew that I would use the Eversharp part of the set, but I wouldn't use the other one. And there was a girl in my class that had a nickel that wanted to buy it from me. So I sold it to her. Our school was probably about 3 blocks from the only grocery store in town, who also had a lot of other things besides groceries, including school supplies. That's where you went when you needed a new tablet or whatever. Instead of buying school supplies, I took my 5 cents and bought 5 of my favorite suckers. had 4 of them in the sack, and I was sucking the other one, and somebody ratted to Miss Mary that I had candy and I wasn't sharing. Of course, we'd been taught the virtues of sharing what we had. It wouldn't make sense anyway because I only had 4 extra ones. Miss Mary excused me from getting trounced by the other kids by saying, well, it's all right for Lois to have candy because she doesn't get it very often, and they stopped pestering me for part of my candy. When I remembered that, it also brought to mind another faux pas committed by a teacher. I can't remember whether I was a junior or senior in high school. The teacher, they had a representative of one of the state colleges there to interview kids and try to see if they could find out if they were interested in going to a certain college. And the superintendent, who was also a woman who had retired and came back to teaching during the war, told the man in front of me, well, Lois is college material, but there's no way that her parents could afford to send her to college. And that was, I knew we were poor, and I knew that Dad couldn't afford to send me to college, but to have her tell a stranger that, I was hurt by it. I began to get a little bit more feeling of why I was self-deceptive, because I could see why I was always trying to impress people by how smart I was. It explained to me why I felt like I was a phony when I was talking with people who I considered far above me intellectually. I felt like a phony, but it did change my behavior, and my writing showed it. And I finally did get a degree simply because I enjoyed going to school an awful lot. I still have a little bit of it, but not much.